Hello, everybody. My name is Victor. Today, I'm going to speak about genetics. But what are genetics? Well, genetics is the study of genes. Genetics have a complete influence on our personal traits. For example, they define our hair color, they can define our eye color, and even the risk of inheriting a disease from our parents. Each person has a unique set of genes. That's why we are all very different. Our brothers, even our close family, is very different from us. Genes are found within the chromosomes. We as humans have 46 pairs of chromosomes. 23 pairs come from our father, and 23 pairs, the other 23 come from our mother. The chromosomes are made up from a chemical substance called DNA, or better known as deoxyribonucleic acid. In this case, I'm going to speak now about the DNA. The DNA has a structure of a double helix shape, as you can see in the image here on my presentation. Like we mentioned before, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. The bases for DNA are four main ones: adenine, thymine, tyrosine, and guanine. Usually adenine and thymine pair together, and tyrosine and guanine pair together also. But what is the function of the DNA? Well, the DNA replicates and stores genetic information. You can compare it as a blueprint from a house, but instead of being the blueprint of a house, obviously, it is a blueprint that contains information of any living organism. Now, in this case, what is DNA? Well, DNA is a sugar which is called deoxyribose, and this type of sugar is very important. It is important because with this type of sugar, the DNA becomes more stable than the RNA. This is useful because the DNA has the task of keeping the genetic information safe within itself. But in this case, we can also mention that the DNA is more vulnerable to damage by ultraviolet light. Where can we find the DNA? Where? Well, DNA is usually found on the nucleus. Okay, now I'm going to speak about the RNA. What does RNA stands for? Well, the RNA means the ribonucleic acid. What is the function of the RNA? Well, the RNA converts the genetic information that is within the DNA to a format that can be used to build proteins. And then they move these proteins to the ribosomal factories. The RNA has a different structure than the DNA. Remember that the DNA has a double helix shape. In this case, the RNA has one strand. It's like just one ladder. But just like the DNA, it is made up of nucleotides. The RNA strands are shorter than the DNA strands. It is rare, but sometimes it is possible for the RNA to form a secondary double helix structure, but it's not that it doesn't happen that much. Now, the RNA also contains a ribose sugar, but is with less modifications than the deoxyribose, the one that is found on DNA. The RNA shares the adenine, guanine, cytosine with the DNA, but it contains a different base. Instead of having thymine, it has the uracil, so that's something different. The adenine usually pairs up with uracil, and the cytosine pairs up with guanine. The RNA usually forms in the nucleolus, not on the nucleus like the DNA. So what else can we say about RNA? Well, the sugar containing the RNA, which we mentioned that is the ribose, is more reactive than DNA, and it is not stable in alkaline conditions. So that's some of the differences. The RNA is also more resistant to damage from UV, ultraviolet light, than DNA. Now I'm going back to the DNA. There are some amazing facts about DNA. Like I mentioned, the DNA contains the genes, which are the instructions for building a unique human body. Each cell has a complete set of instructions. The DNA is so dense that some scientists mention that a single teaspoon of DNA could carry the instructions for building about 350 times the number of humans alive today. That, for me, is an amazing fact. We can say that 1 gram of DNA can carry as much information as a trillion CDs would today. Obviously, today we use USB memories, but how amazing. It's so much information that we can even imagine how much information the DNA can handle. Now, how is the DNA copied? Well, there's an enzyme that splits the DNA in 2 separate strands. The enzymes take the single strand of the DNA and they use it as a template to create a double strand. The enzymes stabilizes the DNA, and then until the 2 complete DNA strands are formed. So this is we can say another fact that I found is that DNA, if the DNA were the size of a railroad track, the enzymes that split and make the copy of the DNA would be moving at the rate of over 50 miles per hour. So this is just something amazing about the DNA. Now, how is the DNA read? Well, the DNA is exposed and passes information to the RNA. The RNA reads the DNA, picks up the code, and the DNA tells the code to the enzymes, and then the RNA, that is in the nucleolus, goes to the ribosome, where they will see the instruction, and that's how they get to see what is within the DNA. Genetics is totally amazing. Like I mentioned before, I am a religious person, so with these functions of the DNA and the RNA, my belief is that there is a true God. There is a God who created everything. There is no way that all this organization, that all this unity in working together of making the copies of the DNA can happen just by chance. Someone had to do this. But what do you think?